The prophet had told my grandfather that Christians shouldn't play guitars. According to my grandfather, my grandma, aunts, and uncles had at one time been talented musicians. Before meeting the prophet, the family traveled the country evangelizing, playing and singing a variety of instruments, from an accordion to a piano, organ, and guitars. Grandpa often told the story about the prophet telling him that his family must quit playing those instruments and that they shouldn't be played in the church. Only a piano and organ were allowed in the Branham tabernacle under Grandpa's authority. When I found a photograph of the prophet playing a guitar, I hung it on my wall and I enjoyed my guitar. My maternal grandfather, who lived in a different region of the country and belonged to a much different sect of the message, rejected the notion that the prophet spoke against musical instruments. He had given me the photo of the prophet and his guitar during my early teens, and much to the dismay of my father, had given me my first guitar. This, as you can imagine, caused quite a friction. I sided with my maternal grandpa and my new guitar, and I did my best to ignore the insulting comments that came from my father's side of the family. At the time, I formed the opinion that if the prophet said two things that we thought were contradictory to each other, we must not understand what he said about them. I always wondered about the history behind the photo, though, because it didn't seem to fit the image of the prophet that we had been accustomed to seeing. Learning that the prophet was active in the church led by Roy E. Davis in 1933 was a surprise, but learning what the early church was like inside was an even greater surprise. Besides having an immoral and criminal background, Roy Davis himself was an entertainer. According to the newspapers, he was known throughout Texas as a singer and masher, a person who entices others through music and religion. It was easy to see that from his leading the choir for Reverend Ralph Rader and stealing his congregation, not much had changed from the time of his prison sentence in the early 1900s to his transition to Jeffersonville, Indiana, in the role of a Pentecostal minister.